And now it's time for On Point, where we speak to experts to delve deeper into the biggest stories in the news right now. Pharmaceutical giant Merck and its partner Ridgeback Biotherapeutics have requested the FDA grant emergency approval for their antiviral COVID-19 pill. They say the experimental drug showed compelling results in a phase 3 clinical trial. Merck says the pill, called Molnupiravir, cut the risk of hospitalization or death in patients with mild to moderate COVID-19 by about 50%. In fact, the Merck was so impressed that it decided to wrap the trial ahead of time and seek the emergency use authorization, or EUA.
Right, and this could be a game changer because if the FDA gives Merck the green light, the pill will be the world's first oral antiviral for COVID-19. Another antiviral we all know by now, remdesivir, can only be administered through an IV drip. For more on this, I'm pleased to say we are joined on Skype by Professor Michael Toole, Associate Principal Research Fellow at the Burnet Institute in Melbourne, Australia. Professor, having an oral option will be a big change and a huge step forward in helping us get back to normal life. Judging by the data you've been looking at, do you think the FDA will grant EUA to Merck for Molnupiravir? And do we know how exactly it works in the body to combat the virus?
Good morning. Yes, this is a very exciting development. I don't want to second guess the FDA, but given the data that Merck has made available, it looks extremely promising. When you do what's called a randomized controlled trial of a new drug or vaccine, the researchers don't know the results. The results are reviewed regularly by an independent committee. And in this case, once they reached almost 800 people in the trial, the independent committee said, stop. This is a very effective treatment. It reduces hospitalization by about 50%. So that's exciting. We've never had a drug like that before.
And now let's hope for the FDA gets through this process as quickly as possible. Now, Professor, if the approval is granted, how quickly can this oral treatment be in the hands of doctors in the U.S. and distributed to those who have the virus?
Well, Merck is a very large pharmaceutical company and has the capacity to ramp up production. The US government has ordered, I think, 1.7 million doses. And South Korea, Singapore, and Australia have also put in orders. So it could be by the end of the year. I believe the FDA won't give a finding until November, and maybe even late November. So I think it's exciting. I didn't answer the previous question of how it works. It works directly to stop the virus from reproducing in the body. It's very similar to drugs you may be familiar with for influenza, like Relenza or Tamiflu, and of course a large number of drugs used in the treatment of people with HIV. So its big advantage is it has to be taken orally, whereas the other drugs like remdesivir and dexamethasone have to be given intravenously. It also has the potential to be quite cheap because the course produced by Merck costs about $700 US. But Merck has shared the license with 5 Indian generic drug makers, and they will almost certainly be able to produce the drug at a much lower cost. And so this will be very useful in low-income countries.
Yeah, that's wonderful if that's the case. You rarely hear of these big pharma companies sharing their medicines and whatnot with other companies to use. But we're told that while the fully vaccinated among the population can still contract COVID-19, they do have this higher degree of protection against severe illness and death. As a result of that, do you foresee this oral treatment being reserved exclusively, at least at the outset, while there's a kind of limited amount of them, for those who A, haven't been able to get vaccinated for whatever reason, and B, those who've opted against getting the jab?
Well, that will be a local decision for each country to make. As you say, it depends on the supply. If the supply is very limited, then it probably should be reserved for people who are considered vulnerable to severe infection. So that may be some fully vaccinated people who maybe were vaccinated 6 months ago and they have waning immunity, or they're elderly, or they have some underlying conditions. And then, as you said, for the unvaccinated. Now, the catch with this drug is you have to diagnose the infection early. So this should be given within 5 days of the infection or the onset of symptoms. So some countries may not have the capacity to test as much as a country like South Korea or Australia. So they will need support in ramping up testing. Also, this does not replace the vaccine. And we must not give out the wrong message to people that, oh, you don't have to get vaccinated because now there's a very good treatment. That would be a dangerous message. And of course, this drug will not prevent the spread of the infection. It will just prevent hospitalization.
Now, Professor, I'm afraid we will have to wrap up our discussion due to time constraints. We appreciate your insights and let's hope for the best. Professor Michelle Toole, Associate Principal Research Fellow at the Burnett Institute. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.